Good morning, welcome. You're watching Market Cafe on ET Now, and I am Harsh Saita, and with me is Ankita Saxena. So Ankita is going to take us through all that's happening in global markets, US and Europe. Ankita, take it away.
Absolutely, Harsh. Thank you so much. Good morning to you. Now, I feel like the investors cannot shrug off the fact that, there is a threat of a looming recession, and, they can't get over what the Fed had to say about raising interest rates, which was more than expected. The 5.1% is what the Fed said, and it's a very hawkish commentary. And there are no hopes of a year-end rally, it seems, because stocks fell yesterday in trade. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed 162 points. The S&P 500 fell 0.9% in trade, and the Nasdaq Composite shed 1.5%, which was primarily weighed down by the shares of Amazon, which slipped a good 3.5%. Now, Monday's close marked the fourth consecutive day of losses for all the three averages. Now, the Treasury yields also rose as investors continue to assess the outlook for the economy. The yield on the benchmark 10-year Treasury note was up 10 points at 3.5%, and the 2-year Treasury yield rose 8 basis points to 4.2%. So, largely the markets in the US were down, largely flat, but European markets did end in the day in the green, were also flat though in trade. They were cautiously higher, if we can put it like that. The Stock 600 closed 0.2% higher, with all major bosses ending the day in the positive. DAX, FTSE, CSE, all the indices ended the day in the green, marginally up, largely flattish in the trade. So that was the handover coming in from the US and the European markets.
Well, thanks for that, Ankita, but we'll quickly move on to how crude is looking in early trade today. Oil has continued to trade in a very tight range, and that continues to be the case even early today morning. We're seeing oil just below that $76 a barrel mark, Brent just above that $80 a barrel mark. And, largely oil currently being governed by two factors. One is the US recession, as well as the recession in Europe and globally. And the second piece is China. China's unlocking still hasn't fully taken effect, and there is still talk of the Chinese government supporting demand through certain monetary measures into 2023 as well, and therefore oil will continue to remain under pressure because demand is going to be under pressure, at least at the moment, the way we see it. Where China is concerned, if the reopening there happens, then of course oil may stage a bit of a rally. But at the moment, trading in a very tight range between recession as well as China reopening. So that's keeping oil in that range. So below $76 a barrel is where oil and Brent just above $80 a barrel, to mark that out.
Right, Harsh. Let's quickly look at what are the events to watch out for in today's trading session. Firstly, we have this corporate action happening at BPCL. There will be a board meet to consider investment proposals, and today is the last day also to be eligible for a bonus issue by Sheela Foam, and there is a buyback by Tanla Platforms that will start via a tender offer. Now, let's look at the IPOs, the action in the IPO space. Today is the last day for the lock-in period for Harsha Engineering, and Elon Electronics will open for IPO subscription. The management was here on the channel yesterday, and KFin Technologies, it is the second day of subscription for the IPO, so do watch out for that. And in the other events to watch out for, SEBI will be meeting today. They have a meeting today, and decisions will be taken on many important issues in the SEBI's board meeting. There may be new rules regarding share buyback, and disclosure rules may come for the listed companies. So do keep an eye out on all these events for the day.
Well, thanks for that, Ankita. Of course, we'll have our eye out on all of those. But quickly moving on, the European Union nations' energy ministers have agreed on a gas price cap. This is after weeks of talks on the emergency measure. The cap is the EU's latest attempt to lower high gas prices that have inflated citizens' energy bills and driven record high inflation.
Global coal use is on course to increase by 1.2% to hit a record high this year, according to a report from the International Energy Agency. The IEA also said that Russia's invasion of Ukraine had sharply altered the dynamics of coal trade price levels in 2022.
Well, switching to China, China's business confidence fell to its lowest since January of 2013, according to a survey by World Economics. The data underscores the impact of surging COVID-19 cases on economic activity. The sharp relaxation of strict COVID curbs in China triggered a surge in cases across China.
And some more drama for FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried was sent back to the Bahama jail in a messy courtroom scene. This was after a delay in a plan for him to waive his extradition to the US. Reports over the weekend indicated that Bankman-Fried would consent to extradition. However, his statement in the court contradicted the reports.
Well, Epic Games has agreed to pay $520 million to resolve Federal Trade Commission allegations. The Fortnite maker allegedly violated online privacy protections for children. The company also tricked players into making unintended purchases.
And shares of Disney dropped following a weaker than expected opening box office weekend for the much awaited Avatar sequel. Disney shares closed down more than 4% after hitting a 52-week low. The company has seen its stocks fall more than 40% in the past year. Industry analysts peg the long-awaited Avatar sequel as a box office winner for Disney.
And the woes for social media giants don't seem to stop. The European Union has accused Facebook parent Meta of breaching EU antitrust laws by distorting competition in the markets for online classified ads and also abusing its dominant position. The Commission is also concerned that Meta is imposing unfair trade conditions on Facebook Marketplace's competitors for its own benefit. If the Commission concludes that there was an infringement, it could impose a fine of up to 10% of the company's annual global turnover. Since this is a preliminary finding, Meta can go ahead and contest these charges.
And Twitter has finally voted against Elon Musk's leadership at Twitter. Elon Musk may have to actually step down from the helm of affairs at Twitter. This after over 57% of the users voted in favor of Musk stepping down in his recently concluded poll on the microblogging site. Now, the poll saw over 17 million votes. 42% of users polled voted for him to remain as Twitter CEO. Musk took over as the head of a social media platform in October, and before his poll tweet, assured users that he would abide by the results, whenever it might be. My colleague Raksha Bihani filed this report earlier.
Well, yes, for Elon Musk's Twitter poll asking whether he should step down as head of Twitter, 57% of the voters out of the 17.5 million people who voted took part in his poll. 57% people have asked him to actually step down as head of Twitter. Now, there are a lot of speculations. A lot of people are finding it very gimmicky, where this is just a step up in trying to be the free speech absolutist that he has sort of proclaimed himself to be. So a lot of people are saying this is gimmicky because he's been running these Twitter polls to take quite important decisions, but to take a decision as big as this and to make people on Twitter feel that it is their word is quite something that sounds more than a gimmick. Now, a lot of people are saying that even if he steps down as CEO, which largely nobody actually thought that a man who's running Tesla, SpaceX and is launching flights to the moon would actually want to be interested in handling day-to-day operations of a company like Twitter as CEO. He will continue to be the chairperson of Twitter for sure. Also, a lot of speculations are suggesting that Elon Musk was in Qatar for the World Cup final that concluded on Sunday night, and he does have a lot of Saudi and Qatari investors. And looking at the timing at which he tweeted this poll, Many people are suggesting that it's probably an investor decision. Probably the Saudi and Qatari investors asked him to actually step down as head of Twitter.
Well, interesting perspective there. And we also spoke with Sunil Alag, an independent business consultant who calls it a rare and brave move on Musk's part. Listen in.
If it's not his area, fine. He's going to remain chairman because he owns Twitter. And he's going to put a new CEO in place. That's not a big problem for a man like him because he is sticking to his area of strength, which is Tesla, which is the electronic car and going to the airport, going off to the moon and everything else. But look, how many owners have the courage to do what he has done? Now, I think he's going to go through with this objective, and his whatever new CEO comes will try and do it more gradually than he did it. He tried to change it overnight. That's his problem.
Moving on from Twitter to Hollywood, former Hollywood film mogul Harvey Weinstein has been found guilty of 3 counts of sexual assault, including rape, in Los Angeles. The 2-month trial heard how Weinstein used his influence to lure women into private meetings before attacking them. The 70-year-old faces up to 24 years in prison when sentenced.
Well, and as the entire crypto ecosystem was going through a turmoil, several exchanges filed for bankruptcy, including Vault, which was backed by author and influencer Ankur Warikoo, who was in conversation with ET Now. He shared how he dealt with the sudden crash and the trolling that came with it. Here's an excerpt.
It took about 6 months to understand how it happens. I was new to that entire stalking space in crypto. I understood what their credit lines were, what were the checks and balances. And I think what just happened, this is my assessment of it, is in a very short period, the entire crypto world just boomed in such a way that no one had anticipated. So they were sitting on an AUM of $1 billion or more, which I don't think they had planned for. And when it steeply reduced, they were caught in some way on the low tide and not prepared for it at all, which is like a bank run in my world. And as much as you would not want a bank to have a bank run, it does happen. And it's some way,
which is why in the non-crypto world they have cash reserve ratios, they have all kinds of limits on how much liquidity a bank has to keep.
Absolutely, and still they do happen in the rare events that they do. And I think the crypto world is going through its own pains and pangs, as is recently as well. There is a lot of turmoil in that industry, which I think is a self-cleansing mechanism for the infrastructure to become better and improve. Because there was a time when banks also didn't have all of these CRRs and so on, but now they do because we've understood what could go wrong and we fix it, and hopefully.
But how did you deal with the trolling? How did you deal with a lot of the hate? You must have got, because a lot of people lost money, right? And when you lose money, you're not polite.
And I think my only way in life that I always deal with this is to be as transparent and open that I can be about everything that happened. I will let people form their opinions because they're entitled to, and there's frankly nothing that I can do to change that. But my job is to be absolutely transparent and open. So the minute I, for example, got to know of it, I went back to the video. I could have deleted it. Maybe no one even got to know of it, but I just sent an update. And I added that update that here's what's happened. I've written to Darshan. Here's his response. I'm waiting to hear from him, but this is what I know. And I went on Twitter. I openly shared everything. I'd like to believe, but I could be just drinking my own Kool-Aid. I was perhaps the only guy who was actively engaged with even the trolls. Not trying to disregard them or their emotions or telling them to shut up, but to just respond, acknowledge, and tell them, here's what happened, here's what I know, but this is all that I know, and we are where we are.
Well, that was Ankur Warikoo, social media influencer on crypto crash.